Hey, so this is the side of my head, and that hair up my back is not that I'm trying to be a kid in the late 80s. Again, that's not what's going on. So I'm going to be watching my Figure It Out videos at 2.5 times speed, and you'll be able to kind of hear it. And I see that I'm starting to get it on. I'm starting to get on video 16, day 16. It's Ken Wilber's Religion as Evolution. I'm gonna pause it whenever something hits me that where I'm going, hey, that's something different. I'm gonna also do one other thing here. I got my two screens here. Oh, neat. Yeah. So no, I'm gonna do something different. I'm putting that over here. Yeah. So that way now I can see that's me right there. That's the camera up there. This is a halo light because that's something that I'm sure you care a lot about. Boink. Let's see. See, there you go. Very exciting stuff. You don't normally put it on the camera there. But Wilber's Religion as Evolution. This is talking about he had like nine different definitions for the word religion. And basically the value of pointing that out is so that when you're talking about religion, you make sure that you're actually talking about the same thing, because there are, different people mean different things when they use that same term. That's something that's super duper simple for somebody who's lived on the other side of the world for 15 years or whatever. But if you've lived in one place your whole life, it's not so simple. So I guess the main thing that comes to mind of what comes from that, and I know I did a video about this, it's just it really counts if you ever thought while you were living in that other country, it's like, well, I guess this is the rest of my life. It's going to be like this. Okay, once you got to that point, then, then you start thinking about nationalities in a different way. But anyway, let's go.
Okay, so I'm Dave Rainer here. I'm here to talk about Ken Wilber and social God, specifically the 9 different definitions of the word religion as he uses it. I'm going to talk about definition before. Here's focusing.com and Figure It Out, as you can see. But let's talk about it for a second. So evolution. So it's talking about religion as something that helps people evolve. There's really a bias involved in here. Ethically, you can't really set up a system of morals unless it's talking about how you live out. And therefore, the more you include, the more ethical you are. Now, I know that would be considered a liberal belief, but even if you look at conservative values, especially Christianity and any of the major religions out there, charity is a part of it. A religion I understudy, and it just doesn't make sense. So Wilber does have a 4-stage model for men and a 4-stage model for women as far as their own evolution goes. And the idea would be that when someone's a child, I'll say the religion is fresh in my memory. The 4 stages would be first, you're all about me as a baby, and me and my stuff, and then you start to include more in what you think is important, and what you self-author, what you want to do, the people you want to include in your inner circle, as far as people where you'll actually take effort, and instead of focusing on yourself, you'll focus on helping others. So it goes from just me and my stuff, and then it includes me, myself, my family, and then me, myself, my family, my community, then me, myself, my community as a state or a country, and that sort of stuff, and then it starts to include me and a species, and me and all living beings, and so on. So that would be an evolution. So it's kind of hard to figure out a way of saying that religion, a definition of religion is evolution, and have it still come off as a negative thing.
I guess I'm saying that, when you say what you consider to be your identity, that part's not even important. The important thing is whether or not you consider these other entities, these other forces, these other people, whether you consider their best interest when you make the decision, and do that without really overemphasizing yourself. But anyway.
But I basically wanted to make sure that I don't just say, oh yeah, so that's good stuff, and let's say that without at least qualifying what's going on. Now, the main contrast for that would be with the definition in the next video, which is fixation and regression, which is the opposite of evolution. But anyway, I'm here for performfixing.com, which is to help people with their businesses with funnel assessments. So we'll check out your offer, check out your marketing, make sure that your offer is on board, make sure that you've got the right tone for people who want creativity, originality, marketing, and then also making sure that your IT side is all nice and automated and streamlined, so that you're not doing much work computers to do for you for almost no cost. But if you don't have a business to check out, you don't need your corporate structure examined or anything like that. I also have a program, attention to detail, and Figure It Out. The main focus of the book is building your career or business, and using attention to detail as a main tool specifically is to show you if you're starting from zero and you need to learn something skill. This will show you fundamentals of many different disciplines and the way that you use involving attention to detail to make those that process of learning much simpler. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you in the room. Take care.
Bing. Religion as fixation or regression.
Hey, what's up? This is Dave Freidenberg from FIGGERRIDOUT and FIGGERRIDOUT.com. I've been talking about Ken Wilber's book, Social God, and specifically the chapter on the 9 different definitions, according to him, of the word religion.
It's a long one, 20 minutes.
They all have completely different meanings. So today I'm talking about definition number 5, which is the nasty one, religion as fixation or regression. And this one is clearly a negative. It's not supposed to be something that's nice to say about a particular religion. And one thing that they're trying to, that Ken Wilber was trying to do in this book, which is very interesting in this day and age, it's actually it's taking a stance against what's called moral relativism, which is the belief that all religious beliefs are created equal, all moral beliefs are created equal. He's really setting up a method to compare those. Now, the last video I did there was about evolution as a definition of what religion possibly mean, and so that's something that's intended to always be a positive thing. And the idea here is he's trying to set it up so that you actually can compare one religion to another and say whether it's okay or not, and or something that needs to, like, what we need to do, we need to adapt it to the modern world and the fact that we now have a belief structure. This is actually a new thing historically. We used to believe that people were wholly unqualified to make any judgments about the nature of reality and God and all that kind of stuff. What's the word heresy, which actually means to make a choice. But of course, the implied part of making a choice is that you're making a choice not to follow the organized religion. And I'm planning on assessing the book. I
should also add that I learned that the word sin means to basically miss the mark. So that's not how it seemed to. That's not what it seemed to mean through my upbringing anyway. Like sin and evil were supposed to be the same thing, and evil in general is it's supposed to be when you actually have some sort of vindictive or malicious intent involved in whatever's going on. So so I think a year ago I was more sensitive to that term because I hadn't heard it, that little definition difference.
Well, in one of these, I did videos by name table, and that will give me a chance to talk about the origin of Christianity, because I'm guessing most of you are from North America. Basically, you have a Western influence, and therefore that means you're probably Judeo-Christian, in some esoteric sense, which I'll talk about in the next lesson. But as far as fixation and regression goes, the easiest way to view of religion is around the idea of dogma. And so the idea of dogma would be something that you are. My favorite example for just making the distinction show what's dogma and what's the non-dogmatic would be the difference between wielding the tool versus worshiping the tool. So the idea would be like you take a sacred text such as the Bible, you have a choice of either praying to that sacred text and saying, this is be all the end all, and we're memorizing it. But if you don't actually use the lessons that are in the sacred text to improve your life or improve your community or improve your charitable, basically the good stuff that's inside these sacred texts, and the reason why people like those texts, why they've adopted them and adopted beliefs, it's a tough one to see that you're being dogmatic by saying, okay, no, it's very important that this person got that person, that person got that person. I personally can't do that as something that's important or useful in life, the entire lineage of Abraham or anything like that. But that's my own thing. So, but really, when you're talking about regression in this case, so fixating is one thing. You're talking about dogma. In other words, you're focusing on these details and you're not allowing growth. And so the growth and evolution in these books, and when you think about ethics in general, as I mentioned in the last video, ethics can only occur when there's more than one subject. If you are surrounded by rocks and nothing else, there is no ethics except for possibly how you treat yourself. Is when you have other beings, other people, that ethics actually arise, because ethics are how you treat others. So when you fixate on details and say, well, that's in the book, you become maybe it's not fair to call it pedantic, but that's how I feel. I ran into a problem of pedantic people when I was in Taiwan, when they analyzed things like grammar. So my favorite thing for that is they ask questions like, well, why is it that you can go to school but you can't go to home? You can't add a word to before home. And honestly, I say it doesn't matter. If you mess up that grammar, obviously you're not here. But the explanation that they like to use is that home is actually an adverb. It's describing you going in the sense of direction. So just like heading north or going upstairs, you can't go to upstairs, you go upstairs. And so it's an adverb. Now, logically, that's putting the cart before the horse, in the sense that the way that language is created, it's not created like a programming language, or like how a computer would create it, like how AI would create a language, because they would have very specific purposes that they want to reuse in every situation. You wouldn't want to have exceptions. But people don't have to be bound by rationality. You can make up stuff that makes absolutely no sense. Like a cup with no bottom. They wouldn't be a cup. You can make nonsensical ideas, and people are still finding that. Like how you see many tests. So building a tool versus worshiping a tool, fixating on these ideas. At the end of the day, all these organized religions, they have to cherry pick, because there's enough weird shit in there that's just not okay. Like, it's just nobody way to go with that. Like divorce rates as they are in Western society, as high as they are, right there, that would, according to some sections of the Bible, that would mean, okay, you're not allowed to be a Christian because you got a divorce. And it's like, how can that be like? How can you say it's like, oh, just because I got married and I don't want to be around that person all the time, then I'm definitely being taken to hell for all eternity, or anything like that. And not to mention what's more controversial to some people, even though I find that completely unacceptable, is persecution of people with different types of sexuality, specifically things like homosexuality. For that, I don't care what people do in the bedroom. I think that the reason which people are preoccupied by it is seriously unhealthy. It's what people want to do, like, it's something adults for a good time, whatever, just as far as I'm concerned, let them do it. But like actually stoning people to death, like, it just blows my mind that people can actually dogmatically cling onto these texts and not realize that, hey, wait a second, this wasn't just written by one person, and whoever wrote that section obviously has some serious hang-ups. It's fairly frequent, and I'm sorry if this bothers you, but one frequent criticism when it comes to people who are preoccupied with homosexuality, and they basically want to take part of creating laws, say, like, no, that's not okay, you can't be doing that. It makes you wonder, why does this person care so much about that? They clearly, in my view, they have a hang-up that's unhealthy. They're busy thinking about stuff that shouldn't even impact their own lives. I don't even want to know what heterosexual couples are doing. If your wife is worse or something, I want zero details of what's going on in the bedroom, and I don't need a book to change that. So I'll qualify what I'm saying a lot better in my videos, link tables. contribution to the knowledge of the history of Christianity. We'll get there anyway. I just want to get this idea across where dogmatism comes up, and the other idea of regression is when they basically compel the practitioners of the language that no, those scary people who dress differently from you and look differently from you, they're not real people. If any religion that says these people are not real people, that I can't support.
This is particularly a big one now in Canada because there's there've been a lot of, they call them residential schools. They were put together by the Canadian government, the Catholic Church, from what I understand, the RCMP, the Mounties, the guys in red coats, funny hats. They're supposed to ride on horses. They're actually the equivalent of the FBI for Canada. And the reason why I call them the equivalent of the FBI is because the FBI's it's called the Federal Bureau of Investigations. It actually means like they're the guys who investigate people. If the entire country is saying, we need to do something about this particular entity, corporation, whatever it is, person. That usually has to do with when it crosses state lines. So it's not as fancy as it sounds from movies or something. It's like, oh yeah, if you do a fancy crime, then the FBI will be after you, but otherwise it'll just be the local sheriff or whatever it is. But this is kind of funny going in that direction. But right now basically they killed a bunch of natives, and it's particularly children, and so it's pretty disgusting. And there's a lot of talk about that in Canada, and that's the direction that I would have taken this in at that particular part. But it's basically how you can convince people that other people aren't people. Like that's a really, really problematic thing in general. It's just bad news anyway.
I've gained friends from all the continents except Antarctica, and it's not an exaggeration to say that when you get to know these people, that you'll find that you have more in common with each other than things that be different. That's also why I moved to Taiwan, to Asia, and lived there for so long, because I realized that you don't know who you are unless you also know who you're not, and you can very likely become very surprised by it. So the regression I'm talking about is that you're going from
now that it's 2021, I qualify to say I got acquaintances that I got along with from every continent. I don't know if you could really call them friends. Some of them, absolutely, they'd be friends or whatever. But I don't know if I'd really lean into it and call them all friends. For each continent,
of who you think you need to be nice to. If you start to narrow that down, that's a regressive force, and that is a very good criticism of religion. That particular part of how it becomes people.
Well, it's a criticism of religion. It's also a criticism of nationalism. Nationalism is absolutely a force that separates people. It's saying you're either like part of my country or you're not.
So
not
that's
good.
5.
Not good.
Sorry for if this makes anyone feel like that. But there's a saying that I've seen going around the internet, and I'm pretty sure it came from Canadian, because one of the things that's one of the big differences between Canadians in general versus Americans is in the United States, it's common to tell your children that don't discuss religion or politics, and the reason is because you're gonna start a fight. It's not going to be the situation, and I understand why that is. Most people they're not fascinated by politics or religion, and most people don't bother researching their opinions or even.
This is really, really funny to be saying before the end of 2020, because that's when misinformation is at the highest I've ever seen it, right? But here I am talking about how most people don't bother researching their opinions, and that was a really interesting thing that I saw from the right media is when they started training people to say, it's like, oh yeah, did you research, making sure that you don't just Google some things. It's like, yeah, well, you don't just repeat whatever your news source ends up saying. You got to understand the fundamental forces that are going under it. Honestly, watching the motivations of the people, it's far more telling as far as being able to tell what's going through their heads and what they're up to than going for most alternatives. What I'm saying? If you listen to what they say, it's like, okay, well, that can be carefully crafted and it could be a complete ruse. And that's what we saw a lot of times. But anyway, let's keep going.
Reading through the entire source text of, I think, that claim to be proponents of, or understanding the platforms of the world party. There's so much going on in the United States where it's they treat religion and politics like it's a sport. It's like we root for that one team, and even if they're doing something terrible, well, they're doing something terrible, make sure that the other team doesn't get in power and do the horrible things that they're going to do. That's what we begin to justify needs, and that's a garbage stack states. The fact that that's what we are independent, I think, is great. So lots of non-sequiturs there, and I'm sorry about that, but I think that he's on the right track as far as making some distinctions to show how you can actually say, okay, well, this religion that that is adopted by a certain group, who believe that their children should be sexually active, before they're even fully developed. That's an idea from the top of my head.
Yeah, I mentioned that one because that's what happened to Joaquin Phoenix. So I remember I was recording this shortly after watching the movie Joker. So yeah, that was one religion that his family and a few others were big believers of, is that like kids should be sexually active, like even as children, and that's just kind of fucked up.
And I don't want to make that into a big example of something that's absolutely wrong. We squash it up completely. It's an idea that I'm aware of lots of psychological issues that come from that, just because trust issues usually arise when there's a history of sexual abuse. But there are also some societal cultural issues that are all wrapped up in that issue as well, when it comes to fixing, aggressing, and basically trying to get prevalence to.
Okay, and the weird way that I'm framing this is just because I knew that probably nobody's ever going to see it, and I'd probably the most likely ones to consume it would be robots, and basically being a little bit more on the non-committal side. It tends to. I've seen since doing all this stuff. I read Jordan Peterson's stuff, which was like, that's one thing I was concerned about, was because I heard that a lot of white men end up adopting his views, and that he was well spoken, blah 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 blah. I was concerned about my body of work becoming very derivative of whoever the major thinkers are, and that's something that just basically hit me, and especially since I'm going through great thinkers of Western thought course on Wondrium. Since I'm going through that now, I have a much better idea of what Aristotle actually said. I just heard complaints in the past about people saying that a lot of Western society is derivative of Aristotle's thought, and so that made me think that maybe like a rogue coming in and from the outside and not really being exposed to it directly, it might be like what the doctor ordered, more or less. Because basically, how do you even argue against something like from Aristotle when basically even just starting to do that, you're going to get pigeonholed as okay, you're just a person who talks about Aristotle. But there's so much of Aristotle in what we do, blah 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 blah.
Cruel to a part of humanity. It's not cool. I understand why people hop onto that definition of religion when they are attacking religion in general, or a particular religion, saying that all religions are religion for this. That's kind of thing that people tend to believe. But if I go back to the golden mean, that truth is a spectrum, you should always be on the lookout for the opposing pole. Saying if another religion seems so awful, then why are there so many followers? My favorite example would be with Sharia law, which is called the type of law that's Islamic and adopted by Saudi Arabia.
It's the hand chopping thing.
But you don't have to dig very deep to find out how that is really a misrepresentation of truth. The details about how the hand chopping works is it's actually really easy to get out. First, you cannot be mentally deficient. Okay, so you cannot be crazy, and you cannot be mentally slow, and still have that particular punishment for stealing. Second, it has to be public. So if you broke into somebody's house and stole some things, you want your hand chopped off, and you have to have, here's the original part that some religions would have a problem with. You need to have the equivalent of 2 male witnesses to follow through and have your hand chopped off. And when I say equivalent to male witnesses, in their policies, they say that the word of one man is worth the word of 2 women. So therefore, you need to have 2 male witnesses, or 1 male witness, 2 women, or 4 female witnesses. I don't think that they are interested in bringing identity politics, such as transgender and things like that, into whether or not you count as a witness on that. But so it still doesn't sound like a great thing that they chop off people's hands, but there's a hack, there's a way to get out of having to lose your hand as a result of theft, and that is you have to apologize. If you say you're sorry for stealing, then they won't off your hand, it's another punishment. But as soon as you go that part, it doesn't sound as barbaric as people make it sound. Like the person has to do is yes, I stole it, and no, I'm not sorry. Like, what the hell's wrong with somebody with that kind of attitude? Like, what do you do when somebody is stealing stuff and has that kind of attitude? So anyway, so it's a complex thing. I obviously diverge from just the definition difference, but once again, I'd like to draw your attention to how vastly different these definitions are. So that's a lot of different data, a lot of things all put into the next neat little bow, and that's basically who I am, and the people who I am hiring to help me out with doing the funnel assessments through funnelfixing.com, looking at your business.
Neat little bow.
Making sure that your marketing's on point, making sure that your
it's like 100 and something hours, like 102 hours.
You now know has a big ring on your head, and we'll pay attention to the little fine details to make that 1%, 2%, 5% difference in revenue. Then funnelfixing.com is the best to go. But if you just like the way that I talk about stuff and you like learning, I did let go. Figure it out. And the main focus of that is using attention to detail to learn new things to improve your business or further your career.
All right, next. Religion as exoteric or civil religion.
Hey there, this is Dan Faber. Once again, the series guy talking about serious stuff. Yes, here for focusing.com and FIGGERRIDOUT.com. And I'm talking about the 9 definitions of religion according to Ken Wilber in his book, A Social God. Last one's pretty heavy. He was talking about religion as fixation or repression, which is necessarily a negative. It's a tough one to swallow, and that's why some people say this on particular religions. But today I'm going to talk about definition 6, which is exoteric religion. Another way of saying exoteric religion is civil religion, and the idea being that people, they generally will follow all the rules of a particular religion because it's difficult. And in Buddhism, they say that being a leading Buddhist is way more difficult than being a monk. And I tend to agree because since we're dealing with moral issues every single day in business, it's getting your bearing and making your decisions is tough. And one of the bigger problems, of course, is we all have a moral compass. We're changing all the time. That's the nature of being a person, being one, is that you end up getting at any two different moments you might believe selfishly things that are absolutely contradictory. And so some days you might feel like, well, does it really matter if I screw somebody?
Okay, so what I'm saying right there, that's one of the key things I wanted to find out from this project. At least when I review it, is I was going like, it's like, okay, so how often do I contradict myself in my thoughts? Because the things I did start releasing it after, like I had some time to get my thoughts together on a lot of these things and say, it's like, yeah, I got this pretty locked. Because I was thinking it's been about 20 years since I decided that, yeah, this seems to be an important thread through the world. And I'm going to keep on testing this hypothesis. A lot of these things that are in here, that's what I was up to.
And I can't screw people over. And and there agrees with that sort of situation. And so the other problem too is how do you live a life where you have the utter compassion of something like Jesus? How can you actually live a life where you do not put your own needs or your family's needs in front of these others? It's a balancing act, and it's difficult. And the fact is, we're people, we're living. We have health problems. We get tired, and when you're tired, it gets really difficult to make the right choice. Same with us. If you're hungry, if you're unhappy, if you're stressed out, all those other things. There are really valid reasons why you cannot be as strong as you want to be. That was actually one of the biggest surprises to me as an adult. It was finding out that I'm more strong as I thought I was. And that the reason why it's important for me to say that and share that is because I also have no doubt that when it comes to strength and willpower and the need to do the right thing all the time, I know where I am as a percentage compared to most people, and there are almost none that I've met that are so dead set on always doing the right thing as I am. And for the longest time, I didn't give myself credit for that. I didn't trust myself to always make the right decision. I mentioned in the video I was talking about Joker's character, and one of the beliefs of why the character Joker does what he does with Batman, and why he doesn't actually want to kill Batman, is the belief that everybody is just one bad day away from becoming a horrible person. If you have a super bad day, and
I'll say the same thing again as I said last time when I was mentioning Joker, which is, Joker says, you're just one super bad day from becoming horrible. I think lockdown taught us that it's actually most people are a bunch of bad days from doing something horrible, because lockdown was about as bad as it gets for a lot of people, and the amount of hellishness that happened, I don't know. I think it was a little bit understated. So, things can go really wrong, but, whatever.
And of course, for specifics, for a lot of people, if your children have an awful accident, or somebody violence children, something like that, it would be like, it feels tempting to think that through. What would I do? What would I do to somebody who takes from me the parts of my life that I'm not willing to play by rules anymore? So that's kind of, I think that's an interesting idea, and explain why every religion I've ever seen, every organized religion I see cherry picking. Nobody takes the entire book and says, okay, well, this is what's in here, so that's what I need to do, and they follow. Maybe they follow it some days, but there are parts that are whole scale, like the ban against eating shellfish or pork in some religions. It's bacon tastes really nice, and so that's stuff.
Okay, I'm gonna go and put myself out there and say that I mentioned shellfish and pork just because I just think it's like just from the outset it sounds ridiculous. It's like, okay, well, this food that is eaten by like a ton of different people, it's like what really is the difference between eating the flesh of one animal from another, or picking one plant from another, so that was the reason why I chose that one. And it's not because I actually give a shit about shellfish or pork, in particular the lives of pigs, more than any other animal. I've heard about how they're smarter than most animals, but like,
that's not for people to say, yeah, I can still be a believer in a particular religion without following all these other stuff of what is essentially demanded by religion. Now, of course, not all religions are pushy on telling you what you have to do on a day-to-day basis. There are discussions in all religions that I've been exposed to that talk about being a better person and the different things that you can do, like being charitable. But the main thing I need you to understand is the difference in definition and contrast with esoteric interpretation of religion, which is the commonly accepted actions. It's not the outliers, it's not the fanatics, it's not the fundamentalists. Even though you have groups of fundamentalists that absolutely superior, but even fundamentalists, the fact is that the sake of text, there's too much in them to follow all those at once. If you really want to find contradiction, it's not that difficult. You want to use text for something that says the exact opposite. For example, in the New Testament, John's view is the only one that says that Jesus is the only Son of God, and that the only way to be one of God is by accepting Jesus as God. The other apostles didn't say that, and I'll spend more time talking about that when I talk about Lane Taylor's work, which is some pretty well stuff from natural history. So again, many definitions, and each of them are very, very distinct, and it may be hard to get your head around the fact that some religion can have so many different meanings. So sometimes when people are talking about religion, they're talking about how it shows up in the whole society. Just like I had the benefit of living in Taiwan for 50 years, and so I got to see how their Taoist and Buddhist practices were utterly commonplace, and how there were certain situations where we do different things from what I was used to in a predominantly Judeo-Christian backed society. So the reason why I'm not saying the parts of Canada that live in are Judeo-Christian. It's the culture of Judeo-Christianity. It's part of everybody's thinking that's around here, even if they are agnostic or atheists. They still act in a certain way where they are adopting certain parts of the esoteric version of religion. So one of the big reasons why I'm doing videos is to basically put a public image to the idea in my writing, also for work at FIGGERRIDOUT with my partners doing formal assessments and all that kind of stuff. So that you know what my ethics are. You know through proof by talking to stuff that people don't want to talk about. And that's a real deal. And so if you need somebody who really feel like you trust to take a business and find out, okay, for example, do you have any people who are just dead weight and need to be replaced? Is your corporate structure where it needs to be? And then there's the idea of offer, review generating habits for PR, all that kind of fun stuff. Those are all available for consultation in focus.com funnel assessments. But if you just like talking about complicated things and trying to get all nice cohesive ball, I also have a book, Figure It Out, the attention detail handbook. You can catch it on Amazon.
Next, esoteric, taught to a select few. Secret.
Hey, what's up? It's Dan Framework here for Figure It Out and focusing.com, all that fun stuff. I've been talking about the social god, the book by Ken Wilber, and specifically this chapter of 9 different definitions of religion. Today I'm talking about definition number 6, definition number 7, I just read my notes, which is esoteric religion. And or I think that I need to say something that's related. That was mentioned in the last week. I started off by saying that in America, one big decision from the US in general compared to the general attitude in Canada is that in the US it's common for parents to tell children don't discuss religion or politics. And the joke that I saw online that I really liked was it said that if you grow up learning and believing that you should not, or anything like to discuss politics or religion, then you're going to be very bad at discussing politics and religion. And I think that there's something we said there, and that also goes into freedom of expression. I'll talk more about freedom of expression because
no, so it's being more serious then too, because I wasn't sure if it would land as comedy or not, if it needed to be serious or not.
All that sort of thing. So once again,
cancellation
culture not be very discussing religion politics, and that goes into definition number 7 of religion, which is esoteric religion. The idea of esoteric religion, the word itself refers to being only taught to select few. So the idea would be the most devoted people of the group. But it can also be that there's secrets. There's secrets in religion they don't like to share. So like people even say that if you actually get educated at that, one of the things they'll say is that the Bible is not a scientific book. It's not about science, and a lot of the claims that it makes that seem to be scientific, historical, or physical in nature, they should not be regarded in that sense. It should be thought of metaphorically.
Yeah, it is surprising that that's what they say.
People don't have time or the brain power to sit there and spend millions and millions of time thinking about religion. So like they don't have the need to sit there and go, wait, isn't that contradiction? What do I do? And so they end up using the cherry picking or the national games do, or they make it's just all entirely possible. So their idea of or examples of what would be an esoteric element of religion, you would say that, like, for example, in Scientology, as far as reports that go, apparently you have to be a Scientologist for a while before you start revealing what would sound more like science fiction, quite frankly, than a typical religion. Things about how everyone say something about they say something about how all of our souls are actually from another planet of the spaceship. And your name was X. It was not anything else. It was just the person name, all that kind of stuff. And so there's necessary.
South Park did a good thing on that.
Issue of time, so which is if that was supposed to happen a really long time ago, then for it to be that accurate and precise, the person would have to somehow travel time or internally or otherwise materially identify from the certain things that happened in the past. And so as a betting man, you kind of make decisions, do I buy it or not? So sometimes esoteric parts of religion or referred to are more call it cultish aspects of it. But esoterics are also dealing with parts that they don't like to make public or things that seem really, really difficult or iffy or heretical. So one example would be that how Jews and Christians and Muslims they all have what would be called mystics, and it's a funny name for somebody basically that somebody is considered mystic if they have penetrated to a mystical state of consciousness. Now I don't want to spend too much time getting into that type of esoterics, except for saying framing it in Buddhist and Hindu sense, which would be nirvana. Penetrating to nirvana would be a mystic state of consciousness, and so nirvana it comes from a word that has to do with void, and the idea being that there is nothing there. I mentioned before in the idea of being mutable, and if you have nothing in your ideas or identity, even the number of fingers and toes you have, and it's like if you get tomorrow you got this hand, then that's still you, even though you always interpret yourself as being something that has 2 hands. Sorry if you've already seen something, but I think you have you. Also like what happens to get whacked on the head, and you have complete memory loss. You always tend to view yourself in your head and tag your own identity with the person who knows all those private things that nobody else knows. So that's an example of something more esoteric. Like how many people are willing to suspend disbelief? And say, like, wait a second, so yours?
Okay, so I didn't wrap that up. What I was saying is that I was given all those examples of identity and the things that we associate with our identity to contrast with void. It's like, okay, all that stuff's gone. It's like you don't remember any of it. It's completely gone. Like you're not like the complete observer is just
saying that there's a way that if I just pay attention to my own awareness, that I can become a mystic and become aware personally and know, not think, not have faith, but know that part of me is identical with the entirety of reality. That I actually can be one with divinity, God, the totality of the universe. That's a stuff they'll swallow. And a lot of people, they wouldn't give a shit, especially if they end up finding out, like, okay, so what are the actual benefits? So, well, what are the cons, all that kind of stuff. I understand why people don't bother to go too far into these esoteric parts of Buddhism, whatever. But since I said that, I also have to mention, I'll spend more time on Buddhism next week. Yeah, but one of the Buddhist stances was that he said there's nothing hidden in the closed fist of a teacher, meaning that there technically aren't any esoteric parts of Buddhism if you listen to what we're taught. The thing is, any of these religious leaders, especially ones who repeat the same horrible things about what seem to be what they call mystical states of consciousness, they you see these consistencies that they agree on many different things, and they're all good. Sometimes you're talking to a person who just wants to make sure that they're not being a bad person. regardless if it's an invalid project or it's just so they can see better. Some people just don't even know. Something that's what some people mean when they use the word religion. They're talking about the esoterics, the things that I think that you can't really separate some interpretations of the word esoteric from the definition of religion as an evolution. They're very similar. There's still a distinction between them. And the idea is you're talking something about religion, you've got to realize that just from Ken Wilber's report, it could mean one of 9 things or inflation multiple ones. They might be utterly contradictory. So that's some stuff, tough stuff that we had around, and that's who I am as a person. That's who I hire FIGGERRIDOUT to help me out with different funnel systems and that kind of stuff. Maybe morality is something that you want to do a better job including inside funnels or whatever, but that's very fair. But it is important to be working with somebody to make sure that their morality is on point, that they are not going to screw you at the first opportunity. And when you wear that on your sleeve, you do attract a certain kind of person, and so it might be worth it. So if you want a second opinion, maybe you're thinking surrounded by yes men at your company, and you need somebody with, okay, how do we change how we do things so that we can help our customers better. We can get funnel assessment. We can also just do more simple things. Do simple things like setting up your corporate structure, separate your income building from your wealth building activities. But a lot of you aren't going to be interested in that enough, but you are interested in thinking about things in a deeper way, or maybe you realize that if you get on the track of learning more things quickly, that will do better in your career or in the business time. So my book, The Attention to Detail, and book, Figure It Out, is available on Amazon and should be available on Google as well. But that's physical, that's also paper version, digital version, and audio if you want to listen to your program. Anyways, thanks a lot for listening. See you tomorrow, and we're almost done with the technique.
Legitimate.
Hello again, this is Dan Rayberg. I'm here for FIGGERRIDOUT.com and Focusing.com, Figure Out the Show, in book, in the social room, and talk about that stuff. I'm talking about the chapter in the book Social God by Ken Wilber, the chapter on the 9 different definitions that he is aware of, or was aware of at the time by the word religion, and the idea being that when somebody discusses religion, they don't necessarily mean the same thing as when another person uses the word religion. They're very different. So this is definition number 8 that I'm on, and this is where I find it got a little, distinctions become a little more academic. In the sense that it's useful for avoiding what's called moral relativism, which would be mean that because none of us know the facts about the ultimate nature of reality, basically have no right to say one group's beliefs are better than others, and so they're all therefore equal. And what this one of the main things that this book was written to do was to establish that that's not it's just not true. You can, and they actually lean towards saying maybe you even should be ranking religions and saying, okay, this is better than that. So this is definition number 8, and they call it legitimate religion. And I don't see. Okay, Ken Wilber has a habit of using ancient words, so like ancient Greek words, in their ancient Greek meaning, even though in common English we don't use the meaning of it. So when you think of legitimate, you probably mean that it's real. Like if a government or a law is legitimate, then that means it actually has the authority that it claims to. Whereas individual in society does not have the ability to create a legitimate law. That's a little bit, that's one definition. But what they're talking about when they say religion as a legitimate or the legitimacy of a religion, it means that the writing or the form that's translated or shared, it basically tells people to avoid taboos, the naughty stuff, and provides good stuff in its place. So one way of looking at that off the top of my head would be, if you look at Judeo-Christian way of thinking, then you might think of heaven as an idea for a positive influence that makes you better. It's a positive influence on you. Whereas the idea of hell, it's taboo and it's a negative thing. I would say that's something the same religion that is not as legitimate in this sense, in the sense that it does not actually encourage goodness. It discourages badness. So a lot of people, including myself, that was one of the things that troubled me when I was young with the ideas in Christianity as they were exposed to me while I was young. So the main idea here too is the more that the legitimate religion includes the different experiences that one can have, the more legitimate it is. And he also mentions, in contrast, what a crisis within the religion when it comes to legitimacy would look like. And so one example would be if somebody, one of the things that's kind of nasty that I find in mentioned in Zen Buddhism is that sometimes somebody who's not even pursuing this state of consciousness or having that warmth of being recognizing that you are more connected with your surroundings than your ego would probably like. Sometimes it comes out of nowhere, bam, and if the person has no way to rationalize what they saw, then that is a shortcoming in religion's legitimacy in this case. So what we're trying to describe is that the more legitimate a religion is, the better its ability is to turn around to people and say, no, you're not nuts. Yes, we understand what you just went through. Other people have gone through this, and this is how you use it to live a life where you're not scared all the time or screwed up or miserable in some sort of sense. So that is the legitimacy definition of religion. And that's why I said that at the beginning, that it's a bit of an academic type of situation that they going into. If you're just a normal Joe, police officer, or farmer or something, you probably wouldn't be too concerned about it because really the extension, the end levels of legitimacy that it's saying are important. It sounds like a bunch of heavy mumbo jumbo. And that's true. It does sound like a bunch of heavy mumbo jumbo until you are exposed to enough people who've actually been there. This mystical experience, this mystical penetration of consciousness. Nirvana is the absence of everything, all thoughts, all sense of identity, all of that kind of thing. That's kind of messed up. People are like, they come back to me personally, where the hell did you go? And I'm happy that nobody knows that this is possible, that I make nothing nuts. And that's a real drag. It's a profound sense of loneliness if you're in that kind of situation. And I feel terrible for anybody who can't get assistance with that sort of realization. But if you're discussing something like Nirvana, then it's one of those things where you have to see it in firsthand to really be sure that it's even possible. It's exactly like trying to turn on to a blind person or a colorblind person and talk about the differences between blue and red, and not go into the scientific senses or interpretations of those. Like for example, saying that when you see a blue object, it actually means that the spectrum of light that is hitting that object, all the colors except blue are absorbed, and only the wavelengths that indicate the retina are perceived as blue actually come out of blue. So in that sense, you start with the object itself, as I'm talking about, saying, well, we actually know what color anything is. So basically, it's saying that it's kind of all colors except for the reflex, you only get one thing. So it's kind of a neat little, that's an example of something internal. And you can't relate it. You can't relate what's the difference between blueness and redness. You have to be able to apprehend it. You have to be able to be. You have to be able to see. It has to be something where you know that you see it because you're here, and that's all that's going on over here. You can't deny it. So that makes things like these these different things sound circular is because there is a limit to what you can actually describe in words. Anyways, so that's the legitimacy. There's that doesn't rate as the second last definition. And I'm doing this series to basically let you guys know.
That was part of the dare of the whole project, really. Just trying to put that into words.
Wow, my whiteboard's still off my board. But let's listen. So I'm doing all these.
Whiteboard fell off the wall, apparently.
Give another public image of mine showing that basically proving that there's a lot going on here in Google, and it's indicative of people who I hire with FIGGERRIDOUT.com to help me help businesses like yours to improve your offers, your marketing, make sure that automation is on point, make sure security is on point, make sure that your corporate funding structure is on point, and basically taking the last time I checked, I know systems have helped the business process $70 million in revenue.
My book good.
Based on clients and things that program, the things that my colleagues have helped out. So you can go to FIGGERRIDOUT.com, get a funnel assessment, or if you are just more interested in ideas and improving career and business on your own, you can get that book, attention to detail, and figure it out. And the main point of that is showing you what cultivating your attention to detail looks like, and you can use that and how you can use that to improve your career or business. Anyway, so I hope that was good stuff for you. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Point. Okay, so that brings us to number 21. So I don't have to watch this, so I'm not gonna right now. Got more stuff to do. Anyway, have a terrific rest of your day. See ya.